To the Selenium Live project. We are in probably the beginning session. I would call it more like day one of our SLP. Now, before we go forward and talk about anything else, very critical that I've realized we all need to understand a lot about a certain aspect of automation testing. So while the expectations that we have for you all or on over you is to have the highlighted skills at your end to be able to work on this project. What are the skills? Basics of automation using IDE. Very simple. We don't expect you to be master at it because we will not use it. Of course, Selenium WebDriver, the commands and how we identify the elements, how we know coding, Java, C Sharp, Python, either of them, and how you're able to put the code together with Selenium WebDriver to run automation tests. But the key thing that is very critical, team, before you can go forward in really looking at how your career in software testing goes is all about automation frameworks. So once you have these thorough understanding of what automation test frameworks are all about, you will then be able to get into CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous delivery, build tools. Tools like Jenkins, tools like Maven, where you are using some hosting solutions over the cloud like AWS or GitHub, Trello as some project management tools. So some of these, and a lot of Jira also gets used, team. A lot of applications that help in overall continuously integrate and continuously deliver projects. So it's a constant action. So before we go into those, I just want to ensure what do we know about automation frameworks. I'm going to take up 15-20 minutes, team, not too long. The first and foremost thing about why we are doing it, advantages, I will kind of explain to you as I go through each framework. Let me list down the frameworks that I still remember that are existing. Okay, linear framework, then we have functional decomposition model, third one is data driven framework, fourth one is keyword driven framework, fifth one is page object model, or to a certain extent very similar to page factory. All right, sixth is hybrid automation framework. All right, now let's talk about each of them briefly. What are they? And it'll be easy for us to understand. Linear framework is very simple. Okay, simple, just Selenium WebDriver code, one for each test case. Write whatever you want. Let us say you have a social application, and one of the functionality there is to share a post. So you write a script specifically with all the 15-20 commands of Selenium WebDriver and run it. It is very straightforward, straight, no complications to it, easy to get started. All right, so a lot of us, when we're learning as well, we go through this process. How do we build it? We build it using, let us say, Selenium, in this case WebDriver, plus a programming IDE. IDE is your integrated development environment. We will use Eclipse, Java, JUnit, TestNG. And I'm assuming you all know the differences between these languages. Otherwise, go back to our videos, day 4 or day 5. Typically, when we start out in Eclipse, you will see how we differentiate between these three things. Okay, JUnit and TestNG is very straightforward, easy to understand. Java is your core programming that has a lot of logic built into it, your OOPS concept and so on. So that becomes your linear framework. The biggest problem is maintenance. Why? If I have 1000 test cases equals 1000 test um, automation uh, automation scripts. So there's no logic in it, there's no reusability. Whenever I have to change something, it has to change everywhere. Now, functional decomposition model is what? Divide the test scenarios into reusable actions, store them as functions or methods, call as needed. What this does is it improves maintenance is good. Why? This is maintenance is high, is tough. Now, why is maintenance good, team, in a functional decomposition model? Because you're reusing the code. And when you reuse something, reusing the code. So what happens? You change in one place and it changes everywhere. Let me give you an example. Let us say I have a banking application and I need to do verification of funds. So what do? First I have to log in, verify funds, log out, right? Now login has 5 steps: username, enter username, password, click on this, enter authentication, confirm you logged in, something like that. Verify transactions or verify balance is maybe 3-4 steps again, which account, when, and so on, right? Log out is maybe 2 steps. Now when we keep this 4 steps or 5 steps of log out, the 2 steps of or 3 steps of verification, 2 steps of log out as a function somewhere in the same code, I'm sorry, what happens is you tend to be able to get it to use not only in login in the verified transfer test case, but also let's say make a transfer or check balance or add an account. So the same functions can get reused. What this does is it takes, let us say, 1,000 test cases. Will now come back to, I'm just giving you a rough example, these are okay, 800 automation scripts. All right, so we are reducing the number of scripts to come smaller and smaller. Now some of these test cases have other challenges. So when we start out programming in automation, linear framework, functional decomposition model is the basic that we get started. Now comes more efficient frameworks and why they have come into picture. Let me take an example with a drawing team that will give you a good insight. And the reason I'm putting this effort to get you the clarity back, because as we go along, you will notice that um, in the live project, the clarity on these things are important, and you are going to help me build a hybrid automation framework. That is the requirement for a project. Now, what happens typically, team? Let us take, there is an application under test. All right, this is your AUT. Now, this application under test, let us say, has uh, a test case, one test case where I have to go and verify something. Verify what? Let us say, for an example, it is a simple test case which does Fahrenheit to Celsius centigrade converter. Okay. Now this test case, what will it do? Go to the website, enter a degree of Fahrenheit, enter a degree of centigrade or Celsius rather, and click on convert. Look at the result. So you have a variable called X here and a variable called Y here, right? And you have to keep checking, if I enter X, will I get a Y? So this test case is not fully tested unless we test it for a range of data. So if I say 1 degree Fahrenheit, how much? 2, how much? 100, how much? Minus 23.77, how much? You have a wide range of data. So your one test case, okay, has to be executed on multiple sets of test data. Okay, this X, treat it like a variable for a number. So maybe 20, maybe 100, maybe 200. A framework in which your data is not hard coded, it is sitting in a database somewhere, all right, and your test case is being fed with the data each time. So you have a test case with 10 steps. All these 10 steps will get repeated for changing sets of data. So that is data-driven framework team. I will not write the note, but from a clarity perspective, you're taking one test case, running it against multiple test data sets. In your test data, how many columns will be there, team, for a Fahrenheit to Celsius conversion? In your test data, how many columns will be there? You'll have only two columns, right? You have a Fahrenheit column where you enter your input, and your expected Celsius column where we have the information, right? Now, in what is the significance in this case is that your data is not hard coded in the script slash code stored in a database or Excel or XML or what else is there? Flat files, anything, HTML files. And our code algorithm, let's call it, is smart to read the data, the TD, and run it for repetitive times. All right. So this basically amazing amount of efficiency. You will save valuable manual effort. Big way. Why? Just imagine our scripts run faster. If you give the right information, they will do the right execution. There's no question about it. Very rarely scripts will fail unless it was the programmer's defect. All right, team, very rarely, because we are testing, so we already know what to test. We know the framework, we know the skill. Now this, what it does is, you, for each test case or a group of test cases, you execute them, so you're really saving a lot of time. That is where you will learn a lot about loops, okay, conditions, oops concepts. Actually, oops, we'll learn a little bit more in keyword driven framework. Variables, what else is there? Functions. I'll, did I talk about functions earlier? Functions are already there. We mentioned functions earlier. Now, in a keyword driven framework, what happens, team? Let me explain that briefly to you. Did you get the concept? If you get the concept, it is easy to learn. This is your data driven framework. Oops, sorry. Let's look at keyword driven framework, then it will become very clear slowly. Now, in a keyword driven framework, what is the concept? The concept is very simple. We know that most of the actions that the user takes are nothing but a bunch of keywords. Keywords is key actions. What is the command or word that we give to perform an action? Like I was telling, right? Let's say banking application. Now, in a banking application, one of the features that we're talking about is login, verify balance, logout, right? Now, login has 5 steps, verify balance has 3 steps, logout has, let's say, 2 steps. Now, this is a case for verify balance, that is the test case. What keyword driven framework basically tries to tell is, I may have hundreds of test cases. So overall, let us say there are 100 test cases. Let us assume, okay. Now, out of this 100, some may require this login feature, some may require this verify balance feature, some may require this logout feature. So what they said is, let us build a simple reusable library. Okay, and this library will have, I'm sorry, team, can I take this call quickly? Sorry, team, I got cut off for a call quickly. I'm back now. All right, so this reusable library will have all these functions like login, verify balance, log out, make transfer, add account, and so on. So maybe let us say about 30 such keywords are created. Now, number one, your test case will look very simple, almost like English speaking. Even in your script, you will see login, verify balance as words, not something like driver dot find element where slash slash some crazy XPath or CSS dot send keys or click and so on. Instead of showing 5 6 steps like that, we show it in a very English like manner. So from keyword driven framework, the focus has become more about English. What are the commands that we give, and how can we put reusable ones regularly, the functionality that gets called and used into this reusable library. The great advantage, like functions and methods I was saying, is once you create it right, your maintenance will become significantly less. So what are we doing here? You're taking multiple sets of test cases and running them, or being able to create them faster. Your build becomes faster. Oops, I missed an L. Sorry. So why, let me go back to the notepad. Any questions so far, team? I know it's a little intense topic, but very important for you to get the clarity. So combine frequent used actions, used user actions slash steps into one command slash keyword. Okay, and you store them in a common library. This is where you'll get exposed to a lot about OOPS concept. Okay, object oriented programming system. You'll talk about how to create classes. We will talk about how we can create methods to those classes and objects methods. This is what you need to be very comfortable with, team. These are not at all tough things. This is very easy, and this is exactly the flow in which we'll keep going. Now, what is the big advantage? You easier to read test cases. All right. Second one, faster test case creation. Why? Because instead of writing 40 steps for a functionality, I may just write 5 6 reusable keywords. So we're breaking down the entire possibility of an application into reusable keywords. So you basically have high improvement in efficiency during maintenance. So anytime changes happen, let us say login is used in 50 places, I change it one place and it will get changed everywhere. It is very similar to functional decomposition model, but functional decomposition model just kind of introduces you to functions, Now, what we try and do in a keyword driven framework, and this is where we move the test cases from Eclipse IDE / Java into a smart template in Excel. A, an algorithm. Am I spelling it correct? Algorithm reads through through Excel and understands the Selenium WebDriver actions to be taken. So pretty smart they are. They get very smart. So what is happening now? Here, my 1,000 test cases still will be 800 automation scripts. It's just that I don't have to hard code, but a lot of efficiency in increasing speed. That is a data-driven framework team. Okay, data-driven framework is fast. It makes things faster. It saves a lot of manual effort. Keyword-driven framework is smarter. Once we build it, then how do we maintain? How do I write new tests? How do I add new functionalities? Change the tests where application got changed. Okay, and you will see that this does some wonders. From 1,000 test cases, will actually only need one automation script plus Excel with Excel or anything else or other DB with test cases. That is your keyword driven framework. So you break down anything into keywords, you drive the test based on this keyword calls, you store them in the reusable library. So by this time your confidence level on programming also would have improved, team, when you've gone through the keyword driven framework. So how long does it take for us to learn all of this? I know you're all in Selenium live project. I still want to make sure you've learned all of this. Linear framework, just basics, we get introduced. This will take you about, let's say, 2 hours, nothing much. We don't spend more than that onto this. A little bit about functional decompositional model. It is interesting, another 1 hour. All right. And then we have data driven framework. This will take about three hours, team, to kind of go through. There's nothing called learning, team. It is opening Eclipse and starting to write the code. That is what it is all about. There's nothing more. Keyword driven framework gets you a little bit more ahead. So about 4 hours, team. This is the effort that is needed to learn them and really start contributing. Now let's talk about page object model, page factory. Now what happened in a typical case, all apps, all web apps have elements. Okay, each element has two things. One, ID, how do we identify, and methods to perform. So they said, let us be smart and store the ID, element identification, and methods in a repository. Now this could be in your Eclipse, or it could be within your as you keep going, lot to do with your GitHub. You could store it anywhere out there, and the whole concept, or it could even be in an Excel or any DB. The idea is web applications are built of pages. Every page has a bunch of elements. So what typically happens is we'll say, okay, home page. All right. In this, we will start listing down all links, 25 of them. All right. It'll have text, alt, URL, destination that is going. All that information kind of gets captured into and kept aside. So we know what to expect and what to perform. It now, for this links, what is it that we will do? Link related commands. Link commands. What are they? They are click, text, read text basically. You read the text for that link and so on. Commands like that, right? Similarly, you'll have buttons and then button commands. You want to click, double click, right click. You have so many related ones. So you have images, you have your fields, forms, and then fields within it. You have the entire functional flow a lot of times. So all of this are understood from these two perspectives. What is the identification? What are the methods that we can perform? Stored in a very smart way. And this basically improves faster test creations, easier maintenance when pages change. Why? Because we are putting them all in one reusable uh, directory where you can go and see, okay, where is this and so on. I usually call it as an element map, a map which like a site map you see for a web page. I call them as element maps. So these element maps basically hold the details, the expected details. What is that we're expecting? Expected details of each web page, of each web page. Now, um, the way it will look is something like homepage dot login button, homepage dot login button, sorry, taking a little time, dot click. So that becomes a command, or homepage dot same thing, just so that you get a good clarity, team, and we don't forget. Username dot type, and then we send something into it, let us say Karthik. All right, so your commands become more and more straightforward. They look easier. I personally feel that the efficiency of a page object model compared to the efficiency that a data driven framework brings or a keyword driven framework brings is slightly lower. However, when you combine all of them together, combine two or more framework concepts slash methods, methodologies into one integrated piece, that becomes very powerful, very fast, and it will be extremely flexible. So applications can change, data can be thrown into it, and so on. Eniot, in fact, is such a platform. It covers all of these frameworks team at length as a web-based test management that runs the execution at the back end. Now, I am expecting in this live project that you all will be working to build a hybrid framework that combines DDF, KDF, and page object model. Okay, so in here, your primary goal objective is you will do it, I will not, and the client to which it is going, there'll be 3 or 4 names team to which you'll take this framework and execute, so you'll be able to put those names nicely into your resume. So SLP goal is to implement a hybrid framework. That is what we need to do. It includes DDF, KDF, and Page Factory or POM together. All right, so team, that's about what I had. Any questions, please? Sure, I can send this notes. I'm going to save this as SLP. This is day 1 team. Yesterday, I think was more of an orientation. So I'm just going to save it as SLP day 1. Team, questions, please. So if you're participating in this live project, it is absolutely pertinent that you have a decent knowledge on them. If you do not, what do? Go and watch the videos quickly. Don't pause, don't rewind, don't repeat. Just watch them like a Netflix series. What will happen? You get the concepts in the project. When we are implementing, you will be able to get the confidence with hands-on. Any questions, please? We're going to use all the possible tools and technologies, like I mentioned, in day one to make things happen. Where did I put day one notes? Let me see quickly, please. Documents. There's a lot of videos here. Should sort them. Give me a second, please. Details. Date. SLP day one. Where was the session notes from yesterday? Yesterday, did I take any notes, team? I don't think maybe I've written. I'll share these notes. But primarily in those notes from this previous session, or I think it was there in Google Drive if you don't remember correctly, but I'll share those also. I spoke about, how we will be going and so on. So you should go back and watch the previous session, orientation session, before you come back to the next session if you haven't done. All right, team, I'm assuming no more questions from anyone. I'll see you back for the start of the project. Okay, this is the expectation from you all. There's one question. I'm going to quickly take that. Is it possible to test API web services using Selenium? Yes, you will be able to interact. You will be able to write code. You'll have to really work on it, team, because there's no direct thing. It is all web driving only. It doesn't really do web services and API so much. However, not directly, but you can code it. Same thing with mobile applications and a little bit of performance testing, at least to be able to trigger. All this is absolutely possible. From where I can get the notes. So notes, I'm going to save it and I'm going to put it in the Google Drive and you'll get it from there, team. Right now, I'm in Selenium live training. Cool, sure. So like I said, team, go back and look at the previous session, day before yesterday's Selenium live project orientation session. In that, I've mentioned, even if you are in the live training just started, you can participate in a live project if you have time, because there's so many things you can do. For example, you can start writing the test cases for the framework that a developer is creating in your team. Okay, you'll get good exposure. So I know maybe you have a fear that what if I can't contribute or unable to do it the way you wanted to contribute. Don't worry, we all start somewhere. Get exposed, team. This is good exposure. Do not stop yourself from being part of these projects. And what is the domain for our live project? We have 3 domains, team. In fact, go back to the okay, there's one more live project that is going on in the India evening times, and in that there are 2 or 3 domains that we've provided for them to do. Let me see if I can combine both these groups and do one project. We can have a session once in the morning, once in the evening to find out, because we're going to meet twice a week to kind of go through your progress. So primarily remember one thing, team, from the coming session, it will be more of you and your team presenting, asking questions, showing the progress, and I reviewing and guiding you what you should do next. And please, mandatory for everyone in the live project to get their resumes ready and send it across to us. The reason you're doing live project is so that you can put it on your resume in a professional way. And we want to make sure that you get started right away. All right, any other questions, team? All right, everyone. Thank you then. Take care. Bye now. We'll see you back in the next session. Bye all.